Hello and welcome to the 27th Degree with Chris and Nancy. Our guests today from BayCoast Bank are Carl Tabor, Executive Vice President and Chief Lending Officer, Julie Ramos Gagliardi, First Vice President, Corporate Giving and Community Relations. Before we begin our conversation, I'd like to thank our sponsor, BayCoast Bank. BayCoast Bank is just right for all of your financial needs. Visit baycoast.bank or call 508-678-7641 to learn more. As always, you can support the 27th Degree with Chris and Nancy by signing up as a patron. Go to patron.podbean.com/the27th Degree, or you can click on the link in our Facebook page. $5 a month gets you a shout out, bonus content, access to Basement Bites. Those are my music videos, and a behind the scenes look at taping before and after the show. You can find the 27th Degree across social media, including Facebook, Instagram, and your favorite podcast platform. You can also subscribe to the 27th Degree consulting channel on YouTube. So I'd like to give a big thanks also to Ron Gamache for our intro music and EVM Studios for producing the show. And without further ado, Julie and Carl, maybe you could just talk a little bit about yourselves, and we can start with you, Julie.
All right. Well, thank you, first of all, for having us here. I started at the bank in 2016. And my background has really been, prior to that, in philanthropy, in fundraising. So I started at United Way of Greater Fall River right out of college. I won't tell you when that was. And worked at St. Anne's Hospital and at UMass Dartmouth as their annual fund manager. And then I spent a little bit of time at home with my children before I was did some consulting with nonprofits and then came to the bank. And what's really great is that I get to use all the skills I developed in fundraising on the other side and giving money out into the community. And that's one of the things that makes BayCoast Bank special. So.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Carl?
So I'm going to date myself here. I'm in my 47th year of banking. I'm in my 18th year at BayCoast Bank. And prior to that, I worked 29 years for a similar bank called Compass Bank in New Bedford. And when Compass got acquired in 2004, I got a call from Nick Christ and said, "Would you like to come work for us?" And I said, "Sure, but I can't start until I think it was like 9 months." And he said, "That's no problem." And that's Nick in a nutshell. It wasn't even a handshake. It was a telephone call. And he said, "What I want to do is I want to take our bank, which at the time was Citizens Union Savings Bank, now BayCoast Bank." And he said, "I always admired Compass Bank, your previous institution. I want to make us into what they were because we have a lot of untapped potential." And Nick and I worked together, and I think, under his leadership, we've built the strongest community bank in the South Coast area. So I love my job. 47 years, you have to love your job, right?
Sure.
And it's been a tremendous career, and I've been blessed to work for two of the best community banks on the South Coast. And I know my view's a little slanted, but BayCoast Bank is a great community bank.
Amazing about that is I didn't realize that you were a $1 billion organization, but you still feel like a little community bank. Like how does that happen?
That's a great point, because that's so important as you grow and get bigger, is not to lose your identity.
Right.
And it, I'll be honest, it's a struggle. It's as you get bigger, everything gets bigger. The positives and the negatives.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
It's
the real
complex.
It does. It really does, because we're under much more scrutiny by the regulators because of our size. Compliance issues are tremendous. But we still, and we make it a point to try to operate, and we do operate as a community-minded banking institution. And that's so critical. And we'll continue to do that as we continue to grow.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with our mission. We keep it at the forefront.
I was just going to get into that because when I researched for this podcast, and seeing that mission statement, I thought it was so unique for a bank. And, maybe we can get right into that because that really is a summary of what the bank's really about and what they do for the community.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's to provide exceptional service and solutions to the communities the customers and the communities we serve. And that goes to the core of everything we do. Carl, I think all our branch tellers are indoctrinated in that. It goes through the entire organization. So I think that helps us feel small while we grow.
And I think that's what we felt when we started our business. We went to BayCoast. We have our business account at BayCoast, and we didn't know what we were doing when we were starting our business. You're feeling things. I didn't know what I was doing. I won't speak for you. Like we're, you kind of like feeling things out, and you're kind of.
That's not good for a commercial lender.
I know. But we went to a local branch, and they were like so good with us. Remember, we were calling. Probably there was one day I think I called 3 times, and the bank manager was just like,
we went to the branch out in
no
Somerset.
problem. And they were so good. And it was like, you call, hey, how are you doing? You had that personal relationship. Right. And I think that meant a lot to us at that time because, we're just starting out.
Mission statements can be, some companies can really make it an odyssey to come up with one. And I know in my previous institution, we used to have strategic planning sessions every year, and first thing we'd start off with was the mission statement. That'd probably take us from breakfast to lunch.
Yes.
and still didn't like it. And I've been involved with a lot of community organizations, which I know we're going to get into later, and same thing, trying to create a mission statement. So when we created this mission statement, we looked at Nike's mission statement, just do it. So we wanted
simple.
Didn't say anything about sneakers or clothing or anything like that. So we wanted something similar to that. And as you'll see, as Julie just stated our mission statement, it doesn't say anything about financial services, although that's primarily what we do. Our first goal is to provide exceptional service in whatever we do, and then to provide solutions, whether they're financial or supportive or whatever they are, for the community. So I tout this mission statement every chance I get. And it's funny, I was in a place the other day and they had the mission statement on the wall, and I read it and I just shook my head and said, probably took you about 5 days to come up with this mission statement, and it's too long.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's nice about that, your mission statement, and the fact that it's so simple, providing exceptional service and solutions for the community, is everyone can ingrain it in every situation they encounter. It's from the tellers to top administration, no matter what situation you're in. And I think that's how, you test the strength of your mission statement. Can you use it? Is it real to people?
Yeah, I think our employees are empowered to embody that mission at whatever level of the organization.
Yeah.
And I think that its simplicity is what allows us to be able to do that.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Now, you talked a little bit about leadership teams. So can you give us some insight onto your leadership teams?
Yeah, so within the organization, as I mentioned, our primary business is a bank. So we provide the traditional deposit and loan services. But in addition to that, we have other affiliates. We have a BayCoast Mortgage Company, which in 2020 and 2021 originated over $1 billion in residential mortgage loans in both of those years. And when you think about doing it during a pandemic, it makes it even more incredible. And then we have Partners Insurance Group. They're our insurance affiliate, and I think we have 8 insurance agencies that are under Partners Insurance Group. We also have Plymouth Investment Advisors, which is our wealth management group. They manage right now, they just hit the $1 billion mark. So they manage over $1 billion in funds for people who want a little bit more, or quite a bit more, I should say, over deposit rates, because we know how little deposit rates have been. But the thing to keep in mind about stocks and bonds is they're not insured, where at BayCoast Bank, our deposits are 100% insured because in addition to FDIC insurance, we also have the Depositors Insurance Fund called DIF, which insures everything over the 250,000. So a lot of people don't know that, but it's very important for especially nonprofit organizations, because if they have funds over 250 and it's not in a bank such as ours, their CPA has to footnote out that on their financial statements, which they really don't like to do. So that's one of our aces that we have in the hole when we're out trying to develop business. And then we have Priority Funding, which is a company that we acquired several years ago. We used to buy, what they do is they provide loans for people that own manufactured homes. And
so are we talking like modular homes?
Yeah, modular homes. They're on foundations. And they rent the land, but they own the unit.
Okay.
And one of the principals of the company was retiring, and he was so enthralled with the service that we provided to them that he said, "Would you like to buy us?" And we said yes, so we did. So in addition to that, the leadership team at the bank, Nick Christ is our president and CEO. Nick, as I said, has done a phenomenal job guiding the institution. We have Jim Wallace, who is our chief operating officer, Julie's sister, Ann Ramos Desroches, who heads up all of our branches, and we have 24 branches now. Marie Pellegrino is our chief financial officer, and Nicole Almeida is our chief diversity officer. So again, Nick's really built an incredible team here.
That's great.
Carl, what's the chief diversity officer?
So Nicole has actually, this is a new position for the bank. The board has really, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of awareness about the importance of creating workplaces, creating policies that include everybody. And so the board of BayCoast Bank thought it was important enough to assign one member of our leadership team to focus in on how much are we, for example, investing our community donations, our corporate giving donations in efforts that expand the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion. How are we talking about that within our own organization? And how do we deal with that with our vendors? Are we making sure that we're looking to be very inclusive when we put something out to bid, as far as the vendors that we work with to do our own business on a day-to-day basis? So it's a real, I think it speaks a lot to the commitment of the board
Of course.
to have someone kind of wake up every day with that focus.
So you just talked about something that was new for the bank. Now let's backtrack a little bit and talk a little bit about the history of the bank. I'm seeing 170-year history. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I didn't know BayCoast had been around that long. That's amazing.
Yeah, we started in Rhode Island, right? We started in Rhode Island 170 years ago.
Wait, you're asking like he was around back
then. I'm sorry. Were you there? Do you remember, Carl?
Yeah, it's funny now when you're talking to whether potential customers or business partners or whatever, Nick Christopher leads with, we've been around for 170 years and we plan on being around for another 170 years. And they look at us like, how are you going to do that? We won't be there, right? But we expect the bank to be, and we expect to be a mutual bank as opposed to a stock bank. So yeah, Julie's correct. The bank was actually incorporated in 1851 in Rhode Island. And politics got involved back in that period of time, and Abraham Lincoln, for whatever reason, was asked to do some land swaps. So he swapped land between Tiverton and Fall River. So the line changed. So the bank was previously in Tiverton, now became Fall River. And then he did a land swap up in Attleboro and Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and they did some swap up there. So that's how. So that's the history of the bank, and a few people really know that. But yeah, we have been around since 1851. We did change our name, as I said, back in around 2011. And the reason we did that, I'll give you a little bit more history. So there were two banks in Fall River. One was called the Citizen Savings Bank, and they were on the corner of Main Street and Bedford Street.
Mhm.
And then sharing the same building was the Union Savings Bank. There were two separate banks.
I remember
And in the early 1980s, there was one of the largest recessions we've ever had. The prime lending rate got to 22%. And as I started off, I told you I've been in my 47th year. So I remember that. The prime rate was at 22%. A lot of banks got in financial trouble because they were paying out 15, 16% on CDs, but they couldn't get, there was no loan demand, obviously. People didn't want to borrow. They would have to borrow. You'd have to peg your loan rate, 3% higher than that just to cover the spread to run the organization. So people weren't borrowing. So the loans that they had on the books were far less than 15%. So a lot of banks got in trouble. So the Union Savings Bank literally knocked on the door of Citizens Savings Bank and said, hey guys, we're in trouble. How about if we get together? And they said, okay. So they got together. So they said, what are we going to call the bank? Oh, let me think. Oh, how about Citizens Union Savings Bank? So that's how the name Citizens Union Savings Bank came out. But what we found out was the name was too long. We would get confused. People thought we were affiliated with Citizens Bank.
Yeah,
Yep.
I remember that.
Some people thought we were a credit union.
Right.
So when we merged with Bank of Fall River around that 2011 time, we thought it was a perfect opportunity to change our name. So we wanted a name that was synonymous to where most of our market is. And our market is in a lot of bays, Narragansett Bay, Cape Cod Bay. So that's how we came up with BayCoast.
Great.
It's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that little bit of history.
Yeah.
So now let's switch gears a little bit. We started the podcast saying how involved you are with the community.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So let's
and
talk about
get into what you do
that.
for the community a bit.
So there are a lot of banks out there that do give contributions, give
Right.
grants to communities. What I think is a little unique about BayCoast Bank, actually, two things. One is the fact that we accept requests for donations on a monthly basis. If we look at our competitors, or I don't want to even call them competitors, our colleagues in the field of donations, they typically will do that on a quarterly basis, sometimes twice a year. We look at donations every month, and they can be as small as $100 for a tea sign and a golf tournament to support this PTO, all the way to a $500,000 multi-year pledge for a capital campaign. So I think that kind of sets us apart. And then what I love about my job is that I'm really encouraged not just to wait for those requests to come in, but to go out into the community and see what the needs are. I guess it goes back to our mission, right? To find solutions. So Carl can tell you, he sits on a number of boards. We are all encouraged to sit on boards.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you really get involved in the community more
Absolutely.
so in doing that.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
So I will get an employee from the bank say, hey, Julie, I'm on the board of this organization. They need to do X, Y, and Z. Can you meet with them? Because we want to see what the bank can do for us. So that's got us involved in a number of different issues. I mean, education, if we have to say where the primary focus, I think most recently has been education.
Why has it switched?
Well, I mean, we've always funded healthcare,
Yeah.
education, general community support, youth programs. Right. We've done some historic preservation. But Nick really feels, and I agree, and this is what I love about the bank, that education can be the primary economic driver for any community, and particularly for our region.
Yeah.
And so in 2017, he really made a bold move. He said, we need to get everyone recognizing that education is so important. So he took about $500,000 of our advertising budget and said, we're not going to promote our projects, our own products with this. We're not going to promote our business. We're going to focus on education. And we started a Get on the Bus campaign that basically just got out in the community and told people, you need to support education. You need to look at ways that we can increase educational attainment. So it was kind of a really different approach. I mean, and again, I'll go to the mission. It doesn't talk about banking. And he took that much money and said, let's focus on this important issue for the region.
Great.
That's great. And that talks directly to diversity and the equity gap too, because that's something that can be an equalizer.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. It can, I mean, if you think about it, one of the recent programs we've done is called the BayCoast Scholars program. And so we reached out to last year Durfee High School and New Bedford High School and said, help us identify a small group of students. This is a kind of a pilot. It's a project, just to start, that are interested in business, are first generation. Their families have never gone to college, do not have the economic means to go to college, but have the aptitude. They have the interest, and they've done well in school, but they're in such a low to moderate income category. They need to work while they go to school.
Right.
And so the bank partnered with UMass Dartmouth and Bristol Community College to say, how can we do this? How can we put the supports? So we now have about 9 students from those 2 schools who have worked part-time at the bank. We have mentors in the branches working with them, and we are paying for them to do get an accelerated business degree with 18 months at Bristol Community College and 18 months at UMass.
That's great. Yeah.
So, and
awesome.
I will tell you, we sat in on the interviews. Each of them had to apply, write an essay, and there were tears in the room as we were trying to figure out, these are the kids who really need this. Yeah. And whether they work for the bank after they graduate, Nick said, I don't care. They've launched their career, and it doesn't just help them; it helps all of their family too.
Right.
Well, just the foundation that it sets too, and I can see how excited you get.
I get excited
just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
there
gosh.
were so many talented people out there that just because of life circumstances, like you say, they never had the opportunity to pursue what their dreams were or what they wanted to. It's amazing that you're helping out with that. I see that all the time in my job and whatnot. I see these people that they that if circumstances were different,
exactly, they
could have done something very different with their lives, and some of them would have been some people are they're satisfied with what they're doing, and that's fine, but you look at them and you say, this person would have been a great physician.
You can see the untapped
potential. You see, I guess what I'm trying to say is you see the potential.
Yes.
Right.
And a lot of it is they weren't able to pursue that because they didn't have the means.
Right.
And I agree with you 100%. I mean, the only way we're going to make things equal, if we're looking at diversity and equity and inclusion and all of those things that are so important, it's really through education.
I 100% agree. I mean, we've done that this year was the first year we partnered with the Brockton Hospital School of Nursing. I hadn't even heard of it.
Not that I'm biased or anything, but I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, so I had never heard of them. They're a 2-year, one of the 2-year program. They're affiliated with Brockton Hospital.
Yeah. Solid program. And students can graduate from there with a RN degree. They can get their take their certification, get an RN degree. And they came to us and said, look, we have a number of applicants to this program from Fall River and New Bedford, our key market areas, who really struggle to pay the tuition. Of course.
Is there any way that you can make a meaningful gift to them? And so we thought about it. We said, okay, tell us tell us who you might think might be eligible for this. So they put out an application process to their student body who was already enrolled. They had the grades, they got in, and said, please send us an essay, apply for this. The students did not know what they were applying for. And then recently we had a meeting where we awarded 7 students a $10,000 award to help them pay for their education.
10,000 per student?
10,000 per student.
That's remarkable.
And these were, again, first generation. Some are working moms. Some were at risk of dropping out because of circumstances, especially during COVID. This was another. Everybody had tears in their eyes.
Yeah, it would need waterproof mascara. It would be like.
So we've got to tell them that. So again, I love my job because it isn't just writing out checks. It's really working on trying to make meaningful impacts.
Just to go back to something that Carl had said earlier too, I didn't realize the scope of the committees and the boards and everything that you sit on. And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, wow, that gives you a great pulse on the community. And that goes right back to your mission statement and the being proactive instead of being like reactive. And it just, I think, makes such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
we really think so. And when we hire people, one of the things we tell them is we expect you to be involved in the community. Now that can take many different shapes and forms, but
Mm-hmm.
we want you to get involved in the community. We want that for the reasons that Julie spoke about, but also because a lot of banks call themselves community banks, but they're really not. So in order to be a community bank, you have to be involved in the community. So we expect our employees to be involved in the community to the point where it's actually part of their annual performance evaluation. It's one piece of that as to the degree that they get involved, with outside organizations. And it starts at the top. And if you look at the number of organizations that Nick's involved in, you'd say, how does he run the bank? But from a president's perspective, that's an important piece of what he knows he needs to do, and it filters down. Personally, I'm involved with a tremendous amount of organizations. Right now, I'm the president of the Child and Family Service Organization.
Oh, okay.
It's a multi-million-dollar social service agency. It's actually my second stint as being the president. I was back in the early 90s. I was the president. They called me back a couple of years ago and said, could you just come in for a couple of years, and we need to get some of the governance straightened out. And I said, okay. And 5 years later, I'm still the president. But I was also, I was 10 years on the board at South Coast Health and Hospitals Group. I'm still on their finance committee and their investment committee. I'm involved with an organization called SEED, Southeast Economic Development Corporation. I'm on the executive committee of SEED. I'm on the Workforce Investment Board in New Bedford. I am also on the Finance Council of the Diocese of Fall River. And there's several other organizations. But I just wanted to give you some examples of how we're involved in the community. And to your point, Nancy, it's important because it's the right thing to do, but it also gets us out in the community, gets us recognized. It's a way that we use to develop business. And I think that's why Julie gets as many calls as she does, because we are first of mind, I think, when it comes to community involvement. So when nonprofits are looking to get some assistance with some contributions, BayCoast Bank is one of the first that they call, and the other organizations is the same. It's because we're out there. We're known. We're not only known as being a great bank, but we're also known as being a great community partner. And again, as I said, it starts at the top and it filters down throughout the organization.
You know what I like about that too is I can imagine when you're developing and when you're looking at what you want to do next year as a bank, when you're thinking about what programs to develop, with your expectation that every employee does their piece of community service, you have a really good idea of what programs are truly needed to build that infrastructure in the areas that you serve.
I mean, it sounds like employees are really empowered to come forward and say, I have this great idea or whatnot.
And I kind of have a little feeling that when Carl looks at him and says, I expect you to do this, that they probably do it.
Again, it starts at the top. Senior leadership sets a great example, and again, we're not asking all our employees to do it to the degree that we do it, but just get involved in something, whether it's your church or the food pantry, United Way, Junior Achievement, just anything. Just get involved, give a few hours, whatever time you can afford, and you'll get personal satisfaction out of it, and you also get the bank recognized for being out in the community. And every interview that I have with Nick, when we're interviewing a senior level employee, he said he'll tell them, we expect that you're going to get involved in the community.
And I think it's easy because we get a lot of requests for financial literacy
Yes.
to get our employees out into schools.
Yeah.
out into-
Yes.
and I'll put out an email and say, I need volunteers to staff this Credit for Life fair or go into this junior.
Yes.
And we're flooded with, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. So I think the culture is really there, so that
Of
as long
course.
as we give them the opportunities, they're looking.
Well, it
to get
sounds like the
involved.
culture's embedded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great term, financial literacy.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just explain that to our viewers.
So talk about an equalizer again. I think that sometimes we assume that families and especially young people understand what a checkbook is and how they should manage their money. And that isn't always the case.
Right.
So one of the key things that the bank can do as a financial institution is provide that awareness, provide that education. And we do that at all levels. So we do a lot in the schools where
You do.
yeah, we do. Well, prior to the pandemic, we had about 14 Credit for Life fairs where we'd go into area high schools. We'd bring as many as 50 volunteers, not just from our bank, but from other institutions and organizations. And the students go in with a fictitious job. They have an occupation. They know what their monthly salary is. And they have to go visit these booths to figure out, I need a 2-bedroom apartment, or I'm going to get a Volkswagen versus a Mercedes. And they actually make
That's a
the
great
life
activity.
choices and build a monthly budget and then meet with bank representatives when they go over their budget. So it's a very tangible look. And
Oh my
students
God.
say, oh my God, I didn't realize what my credit score would do. And we,
Mhm.
it's all of that. And then recently we're very blessed to have some CRA officers, or community reinvestment officers, who have worked with adults. Particularly, for example, the Discovery Language Center in New Bedford, working with immigrants to teach them about finances. We've partnered with Bristol Community College and their women's program for their parenting pathways. And in Rhode Island, we've done the same thing with the Genesis Center. So we're out in the community at all levels, teaching people about the value of managing your own finances and taking control of that.
Probably a good time to talk about the Community Reinvestment Act and
I think it
CRA
would be an
and all that,
excellent time
right?
to talk about that right after a commercial break.
Oh, commercial break. Okay, we'll be back.
Primacare, Southeastern New England's trusted leader in medical care. With offices in Fall River and surrounding communities, we're dedicated to your well-being. Our carefully selected team of more than 150 providers offers world-class primary and specialty medical care. Primacare doctors are supported by a skilled staff trained to deliver comprehensive radiology, imaging, and testing services. Primacare is large enough to take care of all your medical needs, but small enough to care for you personally. Primacare is by your side.
I guess.
All right, we're back. Welcome back, everyone, to the 27th Degree with Chris and Nancy. And we were just going to talk about CRA.
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 Sure, I'll take
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So,
All
Community Reinvestment Act. It goes back to it was the late 70s or the early 80s. And as I mentioned previously, we're a very heavily regulated industry. So we have Commonwealth of Massachusetts is one of our regulators, as well as the FDIC on a federal level. And what they found, unfortunately, going back many, many years, was that, banks were not really reinvesting back into the community. So to the degree that the regulators wanted to see it, and the way that banks should have been doing that. So as a depository institution, the regulators look at where we get our deposits from and then what we're doing with the money. And they want the greater percentage of those deposits to be put back into the community in forms of loans, primarily what they're looking at. But in addition to that, other services that we are able to provide. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to promote community development and economic development. And that's really the genesis of the Community Reinvestment Act. And further into that is they really want banks to deploy those funds into low and moderate income census tract areas, because those are the areas that previously were underserved. And that's why people were afraid to deal with banks, because they didn't think that they were, quote unquote, worthy of dealing with a bank. And we've had to overcome overcome that because, we'd look at our numbers and say, geez, we're really not generating the level of business that we want from certain census tract areas in the neighborhoods. And when we met with local community groups, churches, and they basically told us, well, we don't think we qualify to do business with a bank. So instead, we'll go to a finance company or we'll go to a mortgage company. So it's taken us years to overcome that. And but not all banks can say that.
Can I ask a question with that? So as a bank, as a financial organization, how do you mitigate the risk of doing that? Like, because in my mind, I would probably be thinking the same thing if I was, struggling as a business owner or my credit wasn't perfect. I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to get approved. So where do you start with changing that? And then how do you do that?
And how do you work with people who maybe they really can't get a loan because of bad credit or whatnot, or life experiences they've had? How do you bring them up to the point where they can be successful and get that money they need for their new business or whatever?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we work closely with local towns and municipalities in their housing divisions. And what we will do is we will hold after hours sessions where we'll bring in specialists to talk about, finances, credit, how to run a business, how to look at a financial statement, what's a balance sheet. And this takes years and years and years of doing this. We're very active with our local Chamber of Commerce, which now is the one South Coast Chamber. It used to be New Bedford and Fall River, and they merged. So we work very closely with them. We'll work very closely with agencies that work with businesses that are trying to get off the ground, writing business plans. How do you get financing? And sometimes, they're not what we call bankable right away. So they'll work with other like state agencies, provide some funding, or the local cities have some funds that are available. So they'll get a track record and they reach a point where, okay, now they can come into the bank and qualify for other loan programs.
I think what's important with that is you have a roadmap. Like, okay, these are the next steps I have to take. There's hope, and I can do this, and then I can qualify for this, and it's going to position me so much better than if I did something alternatively.
Yeah, exactly. And it gets back to education. Yeah. A lot of these people that are running businesses, they don't realize what's available to them. And so we have to get the word out there. We have to work with different groups, nonprofits, as I said, the Chamber of Commerce and other municipal agencies to get the word out, and so that we break down those barriers that in our mind were perceived. But I can understand why some people think that those barriers are there. So it's taken a while, but we still have a ways to go. We'd like to, we have a great track record in the low and moderate income census tract areas, and providing loans to veterans, women-owned businesses, and minorities. There's still a long ways to go.
So, I think a lot of people think of a bank, they go for a loan and someone takes a big stamp and they go approved or denied. But what you're saying is, if someone comes in and they don't meet the criteria at this point for a loan or whatnot because of their credit rating or whatever factors, maybe you're working with them. They don't just get the big denied stamp.
No.
So you're working with them and you're bringing them to the point where they can be approved for what they need.
Right. We'll go over the reasons why they didn't qualify and tell them what they need to do and provide them with some assistance or some recommendations where they can go, where they can get the help that they need so that they can come back and then qualify for the loan. So, it's not... it's not a question of, like you said,
and I guess that goes back to like the feeling you get when you walk in the bank, like you know, like someone's in your corner.
Yeah,
I guess
and we do that outreach. So in Rhode Island, where we started, we have a couple of programs that we've funded recently. One is with the Genesis Center, where we help individuals save money to buy a car. They can't get employment, without reliable transportation. And so Genesis have this program where it's called Keys to Success, and we set up savings accounts for each of these individuals in the program. They have to put in about $2,000. We will match up to $2,000 as they go through the program. That includes financial literacy, how to find a reliable car, how to take care of that car. And we actually have our individuals in the program teaching these individuals about financial literacy. We do that there. We do that with another program focused on home ownership for native English speakers in Rhode Island. And we have our Spanish speaking financial advisors in the program teaching them how to develop that roadmap. Maybe you're not able to get a mortgage right now, but how do you position yourself to get that down the road? So
I think even something simple like a car. I mean, you hear terrible, nightmarish stories about car loans that are just rolled over at an incredible rate. And it's nice that you provide that education so people don't have to get into that situation, or if they are in that situation, they can still go and see you and see what they can work out.
And it's a lever, just like education. Like you can't really go access that new job if you don't have a way to get there. And so it really can mean a lot not to that individual, but to the whole family.
Right. That's great. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about, it always comes back to COVID, right? Even though I wish we were over, but during COVID, a lot of businesses obviously were hurting and having difficulty. How were you able to help businesses out? Because that also, I think, it may speak a lot to what the bank's really about.
Yeah, that was incredible, Carl.
That was a trying time. Not only for those businesses that were affected, but by us too, because a lot of pressure was put on banks that were involved in the PPP program, and it was there was no blueprint.
Of course,
And the Small Business Administration, the SBA, I think, while there were some deficiencies in the program, that aside, how quickly they reacted to put this program together was amazing. And at the beginning, there were a lot of bumps in the road because I recall we were working from home because we had to, and we were trying to put this PPP program together. And it was supposed to kick off on, I think it was the first Friday in April. And we were one of the fortunate, or not so fortunate, I'm tongue in cheek here. There were 1,500 banks in the SBA's system that couldn't get on the system. And we were one of them.
Oh, no.
And our phone was ringing off the hook from businesses saying, when can I apply?
Right.
When can I apply? When can I apply? And so that Friday we weren't on. It wasn't until I think probably close to midnight on Saturday that we finally got back on the system, and we were working. It was 11 o'clock at night,
Of course.
and I was working with our loan officers trying to coordinate all this. And then we were finally able to start accepting applications, and the bank really pulled together in an incredible way. We formed a committee called All Hands on Deck. That was the name of the committee, because it just wasn't the lending people. It was everyone throughout the organization, the branches, the IT department did an incredible job. Our business development people did an incredible job. Everyone came together to make this work. And we ended up in the first round of PPP providing about 1,200 loans for around $150 million. And in the second round, we did over 800 loans for about $88 million. But it was, at the beginning, no one knew what was going to happen. And someone aptly described it as trying to fly an airplane as you were building it. And that was that's a pretty good description, because there was no blueprint, as I said. And it took weeks to get things settled down. But once we did, we had a very nice program, a good process, because businesses just didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know if they were going to stay in business. And most did. There were some casualties. Those were few, but it was a trying time for sure.
Can you share a particularly poignant story from a small business that you helped?
Yeah, we had a few. We got a tremendous amount of letters, recognizing our efforts. But there were a couple that were in particular. There was one restaurant that had gone to, I won't name the bank, one of the larger banks, and they banked with them. And they were really concerned, and they wanted to get their application in, and they just weren't getting phone calls back. So I happened to know the proprietor of the restaurant because my wife and I frequented there. So, she called me up. It was on a weekend, and she told me her situation. She says, "Is there anything I can do?" And I said, "Yeah, we can help you out," and we did. And so they got their PPP loan. And then one Saturday, there was a knock at our front door. And my wife answered it, and we didn't know who the person was, but they were standing there with flowers and a bottle of wine. And they said, "This is from," I won't name the restaurant, "this is from so-and-so restaurant, and this is just a small token of our appreciation for what you did for us."
That's nice.
Yeah. So, and then I had another one that was short and sweet. It was a small manufacturing company in New Bedford, and small is the key word there because one little blip and could put them out of business. And the owner of the company sent me a card, and it basically said, "Thank God for BayCoast Bank,"
Mhm.
and that was it.
That's great. That's nice.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
wonderful.
So that makes it
Well, it just
worthwhile.
Oh, exactly. It makes
Yeah.
it so meaningful.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting towards the end, actually.
We are.
Maybe we can talk a little bit before we finish, just about a summary of the services and products that you offer, just for our viewers out there, so they can know.
Yeah, so I think the fact that we have a family of products helps us provide those solutions. So as Carl mentioned early on in the podcast, we have BayCoast Bank, which is our branch network, BayCoast Mortgage, which is one of the top mortgage providers in the region. We have Plymouth Investment Advisors, which is our investment arm, and Partners Insurance, which actually is our insurance affiliate that you can find in pretty much all of our branches, I would say. And then Priority Funding is actually beyond this region. They're all over the country, and they provide loans for manufactured homes. So we really rely on that family of services to kind of deliver the whole package to all the customers and communities that we serve.
Sounds very
And
comprehensive.
that diversity, again, makes us unique.
Mhm.
A typical community bank basically just offers deposit services and loan services. But
Right.
again, it comes from the top. Nick Chris thinks outside the box, not only for business, but also supporting the local community. And it's important for us to have diversification on our business lines, because there are certain times during economic periods where one line of business is not doing so good, but another one is. So if you have all your eggs in one basket, so to
Right.
speak, you're going to go through some down periods where you really don't have other sources that'll help you get through those periods. So that's one of the reasons why we diversified. But the other reason is that all of these product lines are related. And, we have an opportunity not only to provide one service for a customer, but multiple services to a customer, be it a consumer or a business. And again, that's what makes us unique, and why I think we're so recognized throughout the region as being, a place to go to, not only for financial services, but also, other types of assistance. And again, that's where we call solutions. We call them
It's like
solutions.
you offer a network for life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked about a lot today.
We do.
We talked about a lot of what the bank is involved with. We talked about financial literacy. We went over a number of topics. Is there one message that you want to leave our audience as we finish up?
I would say that, again, we're a mutual savings bank, and what mutual means is it's mutual ownership between our depositors and the people that run the bank, as opposed to a stock bank, which their focus is on their investor. They're trying to get
so that's the big difference.
they're trying to get this appreciation in the stock price and a dividend on the stocks. So your focus tends to be lost when it comes to your customer, whereas we're customer focused. And we've been around for 170 years. We plan to be around for another 170 years as a mutual savings bank, providing the necessary financial services that the consumer and business people need. But in addition to that, providing other services, whether it's sitting on boards, financial counseling, financial contributions. We want to be known as a true community bank. We're trying to break down those old, staid banking barriers and make people feel comfortable and they don't have to come into the bank. Matter of fact, most of what we do now is we go out to them, be it in their homes or their businesses, to meet with them. So we just try to make it as simple and easy as possible.
Yeah, I think we started this conversation kind of on our mission, and I would kind of reinforce that. And it isn't just checking a box. It really is something that we believe in and we embody every day. It's providing those services and solutions to every customer, every community we serve.
Great. And that's why we wanted to do this talk today and have this conversation. Usually we do health related topics, but financial health is important too.
Absolutely.
And the bank does a lot. And I think more than other financial institutions that I've seen, certainly. I don't know a bank that's this involved in the community. So thank you very much. So I want to thank you both for coming on to our show and being part of the 27th Degree with Chris and Nancy. And I want to, of course, thank BayCoast Bank, which is just right for all of your financial needs. Visit BayCoast.bank or call 508-678-7641 to learn more. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a great day.